I think I have the best job in the world, leading LeadingAge, and our incredible over 5,000 members around the country. A lot of VR that we use, and particularly for training, virtual reality, where you put on the glasses and you can imagine what it is like to live with dementia, for example, and creating that kind of understanding and empathy for staff who are then going to be supporting people living with dementia. That's just it's a much more effective way of training staff because it becomes so real so quickly.
We call them Future Council within our TCN network, and we had a group specifically focused on technology, and very similar to you, hospice and palliative care people, right? The care, the compassion part, you cannot simulate that in some type of robots or AI. And so they kind of created a guiding principle that adoption of technology, not to replace care, but to enhance care.
Yeah, because if we don't have a workforce, we have no care. If you pay people a living wage, they go off public benefits. They contribute more to the economy and their community. When we're saying that, well, the Haitians have to go home or the Venezuelans have to go home, suddenly 14 people are ripped out of an aging services organization.
I use this story in my leadership training I do. Over 1,000 people showed up for his funeral. This man used his platform of maintenance as a way to be the sunshine of those people's day. And they would make up maintenance requests just to get them to come to their apartment.
We just all assume that safety means lock them up, put them behind a locked door, and then we reduce our risk. But maybe not. You know, as one of my colleagues reminded us, years ago, we used to tie people down in nursing homes because we assumed that was the only way to keep them safe. And we said, we need to think about safety differently. And we no longer tie people down. We have them for years, for decades. And the tailwinds come from people with passion and innovative spirit and a can-do attitude. And those are the people that are going to change the world.
And now, our host, Chris Como.
Hello and welcome. I'm excited today. Our guest is Katie Smith Sloan, who's the president and CEO of LeadingAge. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. So LeadingAge is the association of nonprofit, mission-driven providers of aging services to fulfill the organization's mission of being the trusted voice for aging. Katie advances strategic priorities that increase impact through advocacy, enhance member value, and foster innovative solutions to improve services and support for older adults. Katie also serves as the executive director of the Global Aging Network, an organization with a presence in more than 50 countries whose mission is to learn from and with others to ensure that older persons can live their best lives no matter where they call home. Her sector leadership extends to serving on the boards of several organizations, including the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation in Toronto, the Research Institute for Home Care Value First, which is a group purchasing company serving aging services. Additionally, she co-chairs Dementia-Friendly America, a multi-sector collaborative with a mission to foster dementia-friendly communities. Katie holds a master's degree from GW, George Washington University, and a bachelor's degree from Middlebury College. Katie, did I leave out anything that'd just be good for our audience to know about you?
I think you covered the facts, but I would just add that I think I have the best job in the world, leading LeadingAge, and our incredible over 5,000 members around the country.
Yeah, and I can't wait for us to talk a little bit more about that. But I'm curious because usually people have a story. Like when someone as talented as you and your background like you, there's a ton of things you could have done with your life. Why this sector of aging and senior services?
That's a great question. So I was a poli-sci and history major in college, and I was determined to come to Washington to work in the Senate or the House, change the world. And I did get a job in the Senate, and the senator that I worked for was on the aging committee. So I was a lowly, legislative correspondent answering constituent mail, but I also got involved in helping to put on hearings on, then it was the Older Americans Act. And, just hearing these heart-wrenching stories of older adults having to choose between food and medicine and heat, and made me realize that as a country, we did not do well by our older population. And there was so much that needed to be done. And that just sparked my interest and commitment to working in aging services and aging. I worked at AARP for a long time before I came to LeadingAge. on a range of issues related to older adults. Still very much focused on both policy and practice, what happens in communities and what happens in the halls of Congress and in state legislatures. We've got a lot of work. We still have a lot of work to do.
Very much so, which maybe we're going to hit on some of that as we go forward. But, a lot of our listeners are hospice and palliative care, so they may not be familiar with LeadingAge. Can you just share a little bit more about what is LeadingAge? What do you advocate for?
So LeadingAge is an association. We're a nonprofit, and we represent the continuum of aging services. Providers of nursing homes, assisted living, hospice, home health, PACE, adult day, retirement communities, a lot of affordable housing, and pretty much everything in between. And we've been around for about 65 years. And the reason that we represent the continuum is because that's what our members do in communities around the country. They're not-for-profit. Many of them are faith-based or have a faith tradition. And they may have started 100 years ago as a nursing home. And now they also have an adult day program, and maybe they have a PACE program. Maybe they built a few affordable housing communities. And so they really see their missions as serving people wherever they call home in whatever way they can. So our policy agenda, as you can imagine, is really, really broad because we're advocating for the needs of home health agencies and hospice agencies and nursing homes and assisted living and retirement communities and affordable housing, you name it. There's a lot of things that are in common, but there's a lot of differences just because our whole system is built in, frankly, in silos. So we do a lot of education, a lot of training. We have a lot of online education and then several big conferences a year. We have a research institute that does applied research. And our purpose is really to do research that provides evidence to influence policy and practice. So we're not doing research for research's sake. We're really doing research that's going to help improve quality of lives, make the case for policy changes. And then we have a Center for Aging Services Technologies. It's been around for about 25 years, before technology was really even a thing in aging services. And our purpose really is to take some of the mystery out of technologies that can support our members in their workplaces, create efficiencies, support their residents, their clients. And that obviously is just burgeoning right now. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I bet you that's, it's kind of gaining a momentum now, I would imagine. But the fact that you said 25 years, did I hear that right?
Yeah. And it's so interesting when you look back because the first years of CAST, Center for Aging Services Technologies, we were sort of jumping up and down telling the tech world, hey, we're a big sector. We need some technology. And everybody was ignoring us because all the technology was going to acute care. Fast forward, to now, and in the last 4 or 5 years, and there's technology popping out of every, pore and crevice that there is. So now it's really, what is actually technology that's providing value, that can actually make a difference. So anyway, there's a lot to learn there, and we're learning every day.
Wow. I think we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So first off, thank you again for agreeing to do this. I had reached out to my good friend, Jeannie Parker Martin, and said, I want to meet Katie because one of the interesting things, I've grown up hospice palliative care 30 years now, and I see that more and more opportunities to collaborate with senior living. When I was a hospice CEO, that was always high on my priority list. But I feel like our worlds are getting closer and closer as we go forward, the aging of the baby boomers. But when I first met your team, prepping to meet you, they brought up this incredible report, the 2025 LeadingAge Ziegler 200 report, which maybe I'll refer to it for brevity going forward, the LZ 200. And so it was just chock full of data. At first, like this first time I've actually prepped for a podcast with someone and the team goes, you got to read this report first. And so I thought that was great because it really was getting to a lot of the gist of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So here are some things. So the report shows steady but moderate growth, about 2.3% over 10 years in the senior living space. Expansion is happening more often through unit additions and affiliation rather than new campuses. So here's my question. How do you see senior living organizations evolving structurally maybe over the next decade Will it be affiliations? Will it be strategic partnerships? Or will that continue to dominate the growth? Or do you maybe see a whole lot more of the original kind of new campus development?
It's a great question. And the LeadingAge Ziegler 200 is a report that we've been doing for probably 15 years now. And it was really to try to get a snapshot on the sector, what's going on out there. Clearly, in the last several years, we've seen there's a trend towards consolidation. Absolutely. Affiliations, mergers, organizations getting bigger, not by building, but by affiliating and expanding their presence in communities across the country. And I think we're going to continue to see that. And I think in part because you need those economies of scale in many ways to stay successful, but also because it's just so darn expensive to build and to find the land, the construction costs, the financing. All of those things are just big hurdles for our not-for-profit providers to overcome. So right now, in this environment, in this economy, I think we're going to see much more of affiliations and mergers and consolidation in that way. I think the other thing that we're seeing certainly is just particularly with life plan communities or what used to be called continuing care retirement communities. There's a response to the marketplace. There's no longer a one size fits all kind of community. There's lots of different versions of contracts and relationships with residents and rentals and entrance fees and refunds. And I think what that is just a response to consumer interest and demand, that older adults want to have some influence over shaping their retirement experience when they move into a community like this.
Kind of the McDonald's have it your way. The McDonald's have it your way impact on senior living.
Right. Yeah. So the bottom line is we are evolving. Yeah.
One thing that jumped out at me in the report is, and I think it was one of my team members went to your conference last year, which was incredible, by the way. She came back just raving. And one of the things that just caught my attention, she was talking about one of your breakout sessions was standing room only. But in the report, it was about the continual decline of nursing home care beds. And so with a rising emphasis on independent living, assisted living, memory care, and I think that breakout session was talking about that. So what does the decline of traditional skilled nursing beds and the rise maybe of memory care, assisted living, what does that tell us about maybe where the model is shifting and heading?
I think it tells us a few things. I think it tells us that the business model for nursing homes is broken. Medicaid does not cover the full cost of care. There was just a study that was released in the last month or so, which basically said on average across all states, it covers 82% of the cost of care, which means that there is 18% there that has to be made up some other way. And so that in and of itself is a problem. And I think workforce challenges are a serious challenge as well. So, what we've seen is, then there was COVID, right? So, we've seen a lot of closures of nursing homes. Many of those have been freestanding nursing homes, not necessarily nursing homes within a life plan community, for example. Although we are seeing life plan communities cut back on the number of beds that they have, sometimes leaving out a nursing home altogether. And as you suggest, we're seeing an increase in assisted living and memory care. Some of that is in response to consumer demand and interest. But if somebody needs 24/7 nursing home care by a nurse, there is no other place to get that but a nursing home. So we will never not need nursing homes. There's a lot that can be done with home health. There's some things that can be done by assisted living, but state regulations only allow you to do so much, and they're only staffed. They're staffed very, very differently than a nursing home. So I think we will have to see a resurgence of nursing homes, and we'll have to see a continuation of those, but we'll also have to see investment in that business model in order to sustain them. And that is a lot of Medicaid.
Yeah. Wow. And that statistic's staggering. Just basically taking an 18% loss. That's why the typical model is, right, you got the private pay to try to make up some of that loss. So what sounds like you're describing is a consolidation of those skill beds. But if a senior living community is eliminating those skill beds in total, are they just then depending upon Katie for that skilled care to be somewhere else and then they get them back into the community? Is that basically how it's working?
Yeah. Yeah, they'll have a partnership with another nursing home in the community where their residents will have preferred access or certain access to that community if they need to move into a nursing home. But people are, there's no question that the level of acuity in assisted living has gone way up. So people are living longer and longer with more and more health conditions, chronic conditions in assisted living. And that's something I think we really need to take a hard look at, because we need to be sure that assisted living communities are staffed in such a way to be able to support those residents safely. And again, assisted living is regulated state to state, and every state is a little bit different. But I think that is definitely a trend, and we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's a great call out. The other thing that jumped out at me, which this is where our worlds start to collide, 46% in the report. So 46% of the organizations, I guess, that were part of the report now offer home and community-based services. So things like home care, adult day, PACE models. So going forward, how central do you believe that home and community-based services are going to be to the business model of senior living communities? And eventually, do you think that those ecosystems are going to be totally blended, mixed bag? Maybe, some in some places, yes, and other places just really collaborative partners?
I mean, it's already happening, right? I think, as 46% is a lot. Half of those large communities are already offering home and community-based services, and more are bringing them on every day, either directly or in partnership with others. I think it's essential. Because I think, aging is not linear, and people's needs as they age are different one from another and different one week to another week. So what's important is that we have a full ecosystem of services and supports that can meet people's needs when they have needs. And so if you've got an organization that's been in the business of providing services to older adults for sometimes decades, sometimes a century, they know what they're doing, and their ability to provide other kinds of services to serve more people in different ways is exactly what we're seeing happening. And I think I see these. We have silos for sure, but I see there's an awful lot of convergence around bringing home and community-based services into a broader senior living organization. Seeing some wonderful partnerships between PACE, for example, and assisted living. We've seen wonderful partnerships between life plan communities and then providing home care services out into the community, or home health services. Many, many organizations are providing hospice services themselves or in partnership with another organization. So I think, as I said, we're evolving, and we're evolving quickly, and we're evolving in a way that we can serve more people every day.
Considering your history, this is my sense of it, and I've got about 30 years now in hospice and palliative care. It feels like it's gaining momentum quickly. Does that feel right to you as you look through the rearview mirror? Or has there always been those collaborative partnerships, and maybe it's just a little bit more, or do you see an acceleration of more of those? Like, to get to 46%, did it go from 5 to 46 all of a sudden, or has it just been that steady incline in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, from these reports, it's been a steady incline in this direction, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing to see, and something we didn't, when we first started doing these reports, we didn't even capture that, and then started recognizing that's an important thing to capture because it's a huge part of the operations of these communities and ways that they're serving their mission.
Do you know how long ago it was when you added it to the report out of curiosity? Was it?
I don't, but I can tell you that LeadingAge used to be the American Association of Homes for the Aging. And then we became the American Association of Homes and Services for the Aging. And then we had the wisdom to change our name to LeadingAge. But so just like we started out as housing, primarily residential care, and then recognized, and this was probably now 30 years ago that we added services, maybe even 40. and now we're LeadingAge. But so I think that's just the way. The nature of the not-for-profit community is that we constantly innovate, and we're constantly looking for new ways to serve people better or in different ways. And so the evolution of services into an aging service organization to me feels so natural. So it feels so obvious.
I think we're going to replay that, what you just said, because I feel like that's the Venn diagram of the passion of the nonprofit hospice and palliative care side,
For sure.
similar to that's both our ethos. Again, that's kind of one reason why I've been wanting to connect with you for so long. Well, another thing that jumped out, 73%, so that's a big percentage of the communities have adopted electronic health record or some type of point of service type technology. There's also, I think, per the report, growing adoption of robotics, telehealth, infection control, even engagement platforms. So what emerging technologies do you think are going to transform that experience with the residents? And then also maybe the operational sustainability side. I don't know if it's right to kind of stratify them two different ways. There might be some bleed over between those two.
Oh, well, I think there definitely is. I mean, I think the social engagement tools and technologies that have come on the market have been transformational. A lot of and technologies that help people who are living with dementia sort of retain memory and which are just magical when you see them in action. There's a lot of VR that we use, and particularly for training, virtual reality, where you put on the glasses and you can imagine what it is like to live with dementia, for example, and creating that kind of understanding and empathy for staff who are then going to be supporting people living with dementia. That's just, it's a much more effective way of training staff because it becomes so real so quickly. And I think there's a lot of technologies that just are able to make this experience for individuals more personal. And I think that's also a good thing. And I think consumers love that. AI will create some operational efficiencies for sure, and already has. And I think we've only just scratched the surface on how AI is going to impact our sector and basically every other sector. But, at the end of the day, we're in the people business. So AI, there's all this talk about AI is going to, eliminate jobs. Our jobs can't be eliminated. We are in the people business. So AI can help free up time so that the people doing the caring can spend more time doing the caring. And I think that's a huge opportunity for us and a huge benefit, particularly with our workforce challenges. I think one of the things that we've certainly seen is that there's a lot of technology out there, and one of the biggest challenges is actually adoption. So if you bring it into a community, you can't just here's the tool, here's the new software. It's the training and the retraining, and if it's a technology that residents are going to use, it's making sure you have those support systems in place so people can actually take advantage of the technology. There's a lot of talk about robotics. And where I see robotics used mostly now is in dining rooms and in landscaping, like cutting grass. These little robots that go, like you have a robot that'll clean your floor, like a vacuum cleaner. You can do that outside. So obviously that's helpful, right? But I don't think we've seen the promise of robots yet, although the technology is evolving very, very, very quickly. So I think there is an awful lot of promise with technology, but I also believe that we need to just be circumspect about privacy issues, other issues related to technology that may sort of get in the way of its effectiveness.
Thank you to our TCNtalks sponsor, Dragonfly Health. Dragonfly Health is also the title sponsor for Leadership Immersion courses. Dragonfly Health is a leading care-at-home data, technology, and service platform. With a 20-year history, Dragonfly Health uses advanced technology and robust analytics to manage durable medical equipment and pharmaceutical services as part of a single efficient solution for caregivers, patients, and their families. The company serves millions of patients annually across all 50 states. Thank you, Dragonfly Health, for all the great work that you do.
That's so well said. We call them future council within our TCN network. And we had a group specifically focused on technology, and very similar to you, hospice and palliative care people, right? The care, the compassion part, you cannot simulate that in some type of robots or AI. And so they kind of created a guiding principle that adoption of technology, not to replace care, but to enhance care.
Yeah.
It was kind of the gist of it. And I thought that was a beautiful way to phrase it. The other thing I love when you were poking on, I have a friend who went to a conference in Japan, and I think I heard this right, because Japan's baby boomers are about 10 years ahead of ours.
Yeah.
They are deploying the robotics from a care standpoint. Have you heard something similar?
Yes, I have. Absolutely, I have. Yeah. Yeah. And so, we'll see. Let them test it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll see what works well and bring it to this country. But I'll have to say, we just had our big conference in Boston a couple of weeks ago, and in our exhibit hall, which is quite expansive, there were quite a few robots.
Really?
People, companies, vendors who had robots for companionship. There was one for, that provides companionship to an individual. Then there are robots that will bring a tray to your bedside or tray to your table, which frees up the caregiver to help with the feeding process or to sit down and just have a conversation with somebody while they're having a meal. So just creating, to your point, the kind of efficiency, a little bit of efficiency and freeing up precious staff time to actually provide more hands-on care and support.
Wow. And I think the acronym was CAST, right, for your technology center.
Yeah.
Do you use it as kind of like your experimentation station? Is it that, can you just talk about it just a little bit more?
Sure. Well, one of the things that CAST does and has for years is identifies areas of technology that are of interest to members and really looks at the marketplace and looks at some of the characteristics of those technologies. So medication management technologies. What are some of the features that might be important to an organization? And then what are the vendors? What are the products that are in the marketplace, and just matching them up? So, it may be a medication management tool that's used on an iPad, or it may be a medication management tool that an individual uses in their own home. So sort of just matching those up. It's not a consumer report. So we're not saying better, worse, or rating. What we're simply saying is, as an organization, figure out what's important to you as you're thinking about employing medication management or social engagement or even an EHR, and then match it up against the products that are available in the marketplace. And we update that every single year. We've got about 12 different technologies that we keep track of. The marketplace is changing. Products come on the market and then they go off the market. A lot of that in technology. But our point was, and it continues to be, is we want to take some of the mystery out of decision-making related to technologies. If we can help members sort of get over that hurdle of figuring out how to select a technology, then we want to do that, because it's usually a pretty expensive investment. And we all know that technology changes a lot. And so we want to help them make the right decision for their organization, their operations. And because everybody is a little different, we're not going to tell them what to do. So those are all available on our website. And, again, we update them every year. So that's a part of what we do. And then the other part of what CAST does is really we're doing a lot of conversations and webinars and workshops on AI right now. How do you use AI in a senior living environment? What are some of the ethical issues around AI? How to think about it. So just trying to bring almost a case study approach, as well as to thinking about new technologies and drawing on experts from around the world on technology. As part of the Global Aging Network, there's a huge international conversation in social care right now about ethical issues with AI. Really spearheaded at Oxford University, where they've really created almost an institute looking at what are the how should we be thinking about privacy and empowerment and all of those issues related to AI. So we're part of that conversation as well. There's a lot going on.
Wow. Do you, so I imagine you have to have a pretty kick butt process to vet these technologies. Do you also teach your members the process? Because that in itself feels like a help to them. And then my second question to that is, I bet you're seeing a volume increase, right? Because it feels like every day I'm bumping into. I've got a folder now in my my Google folders. I just call it substitution competitions because I feel like I'm bumping into new innovations, some of which are complementary, some of which could even be substitution competition to the work that we do. And it's just like every day is growing exponentially. So two questions. Do you pay the process for it? Because imagine it's a great process. And are you seeing the volume of things that you could be looking at increasing?
So yes and yes, for sure. I mean, we've sort of, I guess, having done this now, these tools for 12 years, maybe, we've kind of got our process down. So it's pretty efficient. But also there's it's sort of the sky's the limit. And so the question for us is really what's the highest and best use of our time in supporting members around technology? And a lot of it is driven by what members are asking. We have lots of channels of two-way communication with our members where we're really asking them all the time and hearing from them all the time. And, as an association, our job is to provide value to our members. So we're responding to what they're asking for. And right now, a lot of it is around AI.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Curiosity. Yeah.
When I was referring to our future councils within TCN, of course, technology was one focus group. But as you can imagine, workforce was another, because it's one of our top challenges, is one of yours. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but that workforce challenge is only going to get more acute as we go forward. So you've alluded to some innovations, but are you also seeing maybe I'll call them system level redesigns that are helping address this workforce issue? It's almost like we've got to even think about our work in different ways. I know, like in the hospice side, we've brainstormed, there are new disciplines we could weave in, like the idea of community health workers is one, paramedicine's another, but then also thinking about the work differently. So I'd imagine you're doing similar things. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is definitely a lot of sort of workforce redesign in terms of what just happens in a workplace, like different ways of thinking about jobs. In the nursing home world, it's so heavily regulated. There's not as much room for experimentation. But what we're seeing across the board is heavy, heavy investments in building strong workplace cultures. Really, instead of saying that, the resident is the main thing, it's the worker that's the main thing. It's our workforce is the main thing. Because if we don't have a workforce, we have no care. And so our members are just really thinking hard about how do we help our staff as human beings with lives, in addition to helping them do their jobs well. And so I think, and that's all about quality of care, and it's also about retention. It's also about just respect and dignity and treating people well. So we're seeing a lot of that. I think there's also a lot of one of our big issues for the years has been professionalizing the direct care workforce. This is not, we call them low wage workers, and therefore there's a stigma attached to that. They may not be paid a lot, but they're highly skilled. They're highly skilled. You can't do direct care without being skilled and trained to do it. You also can't do direct care without the heart to do it. And so we several years ago worked with a labor economist and published a report called Making Direct Care Work Pay, and focused really on what would the world look like if we paid these folks a living wage, which we don't right now, using the MIT Living Wage Index. And what the labor economist, in running all of their reports and tables, discovered, maybe not surprisingly, is it sort of pays for itself over time. Like if you pay people a living wage, they go off public benefits, they contribute more to the economy and their community. There are all the benefits to them as people and as contributing members of society, inures to the community at large. So that's been just part of our agenda for a long time, is that we've really got to reframe how we think about and how we appreciate and support our direct care workforce. And we will continue to do that. We have a project right now, grant-funded project, really looking at what are the possibilities around creating apprenticeship programs for direct care workers, where there's actually a career path So, you may be a direct care worker, and then maybe you want to become a wound care specialist, or maybe you want to become a specialist in dementia care, or maybe you want to be an RN or an LPN. So that it's not a dead end job, that some people that's all they want to do, and God bless them. But but really creating opportunities that hasn't traditionally existed. Another big part of our workforce agenda is around immigration reform. 28% overall of the direct care workforce is foreign born right now. And in home care,
it's 28%.
28%. But in home care, it's 32. In residential care, it's 24. Nursing homes, it's a little less, 21, but still. So if you think about 80% of your workforce, 20% of your workforce being from other countries, and suddenly we're not bringing people in from other countries, it's creating huge problems already.
Yep.
But it's also, we've lost our pipeline for workers, because it takes a long time to get somebody into this country, into a direct care or a nursing job, for example, or a therapist who are coming in from other countries. So we have been advocating and, yelling about the need for immigration policies, legal immigration policies that support aging services, so that we continue to have a pipeline. And these folks are coming from countries where they revere their elders. And the idea of having the opportunity to work with older adults in the United States is like, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And yet we're cutting off our supply. And now, even with some of the changes to TPS, I won't get political here, but the changes to TPS, when we're saying that, well, the Haitians have to go home or the Venezuelans have to go home, suddenly 14 people are ripped out of an aging services organization. And it's not just that the workers aren't there, it's the relationships are broken. The work we do is teamwork, right? It's a team between a resident or a client, particularly like in hospice, a resident, client, and a worker. And it's the team of workers that work together to support people. So this is a big part of our policy agenda. We think there are some creative solutions to legal paths for immigration built on existing programs that work well. But we need a different environment to do that.
Kudos to you guys on that. I've been poking the associations we're part of, saying we should play offense. Thank you. You're the first one I've bumped into and said that you're out playing offense. Anything we can do along those lines, please let me know to help you.
Thank you. I will. I'll take you up on that.
Whenever you were talking earlier about just the stories, Katie, one story that's automatically came to mind, this hospice where I was the longtime CEO, the lady who was our matriarch, she founded that hospice in her living room. She became a resident in this beautiful senior living community here. And so she became my adopted grandmother, spent a lot of time in that community with her. And their maintenance guy died. And I use this story in my leadership training I do, because over 1,000 people showed up for his funeral. This man used his platform of maintenance as a way to be the sunshine of those people's day. And they would make up maintenance requests just to get him to come to their apartment. He was just the stories were just, and I use that story because it just shows it doesn't matter what your platform is. But I wanted to pay that forward to you because it just totally reminded me of that. Yeah. And there are probably so many people like that throughout the country that, are kind of under your influence of what your members are, have many people like that within their facilities. So
we're not only in the people business, we're in the relationship business.
Absolutely. And I saw that, and that was her community. And it was so neat when because I kind of became like her adopted grandson, and just to get to our table in the dining room took at least 15 to 20 minutes because she had to introduce me to, it was her community. And it just touched my heart because hospice is so much about community. It's just so great because it was kind of in one location. Whereas, maybe in the old days, we walked down the street and people were on their porches. Now it's kind of within these communities. It just really hit me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet. Well, and which maybe leads us to another good question. And maybe your answer is going to be, well, the way it's always been, or is there deeper ways? So here's my question. How do you envision hospice and palliative care maybe integrating more deeply into these senior living settings? And especially as the baby boomers are getting older. Because people are living with multiple chronic diseases, we're probably seeing maybe more acute situations. And so as we get more into that, is it just we need to keep doing what we've been doing, or are there ways that we can integrate better together?
So when I look across our membership, we have many members partner closely with hospice organizations. Others offer it themselves. And it really depends, the decision which way to go really depends on the availability of partners in the community or close by, and also just the mission of the organization. But when there's clear alignment and clear, mutual goals, partnership is really an effective way to go. I was talking to one of our members who I asked her if she partners with a local hospice that I was aware of. And she said, no, I do it myself. I've been taking care of these people for years. Why would I let them go at the end of their lives? Which was a really interesting, she felt like this was her responsibility. Now, not everybody feels that way or has the capacity to take that on. So I think what we're seeing is lots of different versions of how do we provide the end of life care that people need in a way that makes sense to an organization. But I think we'll see more and more of that. I think you're right, and I think the key is if you're partnering, find the right partner. Find the partner whose mission aligns with you, and that you can feel totally confident that the quality of care that they're providing is equal to or better than the care that you provide.
Well, that's incredibly well said. And just to respond to your friend that said, I totally get the heart behind that comment. I spent a lot of my early days as a hospice CEO walking into those conversations. And I think that hospice, first off, is a beautiful model of care, just like your senior living communities, the team-based model, the focus on the care plan, the holistic care, all of those things make it so unique. And when it's done well, it looks almost easy, like anybody could do it. But, I think where we've maybe sold ourselves short is just like you want to go to a world-class cardiologist if you have a heart problem. And so we have become sufferologists, and there is a core competency. And if you have a good partner, it's not that you're totally letting them go with someone else. You're bringing in a beautiful partner that you can collaborate on. Quite, if we're gonna delegate to a robot to bring the tray, surely you could partner with it. But I think the key is that I could kind of read behind some of your comments. Not all hospices are made alike anymore in the country, and that's certainly my purpose and passion is to get as many of them as possible up to high quality standards. Therefore, then you have a lot better pickings of partners that you could bring into your facilities.
I think the partnership is also with the family. I mean, both of my parents died under hospice care, and I felt so supported by the hospice. I felt they were providing tremendous support to my mom and then my dad. But I also felt like they were supporting me even beyond after my parents passed away. And so I think that's in many ways the untold story of hospice care. Is that it is that holistic care, but it's holistic in a much broader sense than we normally think about.
That is so brilliantly said, because I've then put myself in the shoes of your senior living partners. While they may have some of that, we do that at a totally different level. So that makes us better partners because we could partner on that side of the equation where maybe sometimes they don't have the tentacles and the impact that we do. I'm so glad you pointed that out. That's awesome. Is there anything on the public policy side that you think that we should do that may enhance our ability to partner more, or are we kind of good there from your perspective?
Yeah, not public policy is the hindrance there at all. I think it's really, I think if an organization really wants to partner, and they can find the right partner, that could be a beautiful thing.
Awesome. And then, value-based care is all the mantra in healthcare. I'm sure in your world, it's being talked about quite a bit as well. How is that spilling into senior living? Do you think that's going to maybe force our hand in even more collaborative partnerships up and down the value chain of healthcare?
I would say, in response to your question, how has it been integrated? Not well. Our entire continuum at LeadingAge, from senior living to home health to hospice and palliative care, has really not been well integrated into value-based care on the post-acute care side. We are often viewed as a piggy bank rather than as a valued partner. And we usually are not viewed as a source of care coordination, which I think we do incredibly well. So whether it's in a senior living community or it's in a person's home, the opportunity to adopt a value-based care with the right partners is huge, but I think up to date, it's really been unrealized. So opportunity ahead, but we have to have a system that actually respects and understands the value that we bring to the table.
Can you unpack, because it really feels profound. You're saying treat it like the piggy bank. What does that mean?
That we can provide the savings, but we're not going to realize any of the savings. We
Gotcha.
are going to realize the savings. Somebody else will realize it, even though it's because of our work that the savings are realized. Did that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes a lot. It feels like you're saying back to me what I said a couple moments to you about, people go, well, anybody could do hospice. You do so well what you do as senior living, they don't realize the ecosystem and the impacts that you've created and how probably keeps them out of the hospital, keeps them out of the ER, maybe even helps them live better longer. I mean, all those things that are supposed to be the true goals of value-based care. I'm so glad I asked you that question.
We have long believed that our residential-based provider members can serve as an integration hub for older adults that they serve, connecting them with care services and supports when they need them. But without true communication, without true coordination, collaboration, we can't succeed at that. So integration, of aging services, whether it's in a value-based environment or anything else, what we do is a team sport. And so we all need to do this together. We need the game plan and to do it together. So our hope is that we will continue to hammer away at that because clearly there's a lot of value in value-based care.
One more question, Katie, and then we'll wrap up. So obviously the predictions about dementia care, people suffering Alzheimer's, staggering statistics going forward. So how are senior living communities maybe innovating in that space in particular? And if there's any ways that you think maybe we could collaborate better as hospice folks along that. But really the first part, we just did a podcast, it was released about a couple months ago with the Glenner model out of San Diego, a really interesting adult daycare, innovative model, and they're now franchising it nationwide. So that's really the gist, like what type of innovations in that space?
Well, I would say there's a lot of innovation. There's also a lot of just an uptick in interest in brain health and a recognition that we've talked about heart health for years, and now we're talking about brain health. And I think that's a really good thing. So one of the conversations that we have been having at LeadingAge with our members for the last probably 2 years is around inclusive dementia. And the idea behind that is really to think about why we have created environments where we put people behind locked doors and we inhibit the ability of people who are living with dementia to live sort of freely and fully integrated into the community that they live in. And so we decided we're not necessarily taking a position, but what we're saying is we should have a conversation about this because we've just all assumed that safety means lock them up, put them behind a locked door, and then we reduce our risk. But maybe not. As one of my colleagues reminded us, years ago, we used to tie people down in nursing homes because we assumed that was the only way to keep them safe. And we said, we need to think about safety differently. And we no longer tie people down. We have them for years, for decades. So I think that's the same kind of thinking that we need to bring to how do we support people, the millions of people who are living with dementia in a much more dignified, perhaps, way. So again, we said what we do often at LeadingAge is we set the table and see who comes and then have a conversation. So we set the table and we had tremendous interest, and then we set another table and had some, so it's a continuing conversation. Who knows where it will lead, but it's at least getting us all to think about, to challenge the assumptions that we have been living and acting and operating on for a number of years, which I think is incredibly important now, given the numbers you described of people who are living with dementia and how that is going to grow.
Man, I can't wait to hear more about that. I love that you guys are doing that. And us sitting here processing, that's such a brilliant question to ask. And because the numbers are going to be staggering. And I'm just thinking, you're making me reflect on even some family experiences on both sides of the equation. And I never reflected back about the ones that were more integrated. It actually felt better. I mean, just I'm quickly processing and I'm kind of at the end of one, but I think you're onto something with that.
I think, I think we are too. I just don't know where it ends up, but that's okay.
But that's going to be cool.
It's okay.
Future podcast together. I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested. Well, here's always a fun question, especially someone with your background. If you could redesign the entire continuum from independent living, assisted living, if you throw hospice in that, to be a truly person-centered, integrated model in the U.S., Katie was queen or president, Madam President for the day, what would she do?
Well, I would start with valuing older adults and I would ask them what they want. And I would break down the silos. We're a system built on silos. And we have silos because that's the way we regulate. That's the way we work. We employ people. That's the way we pay people. And what it does is creates divisions. We need to break those silos down and create a fully integrated system because, as I mentioned earlier, people don't age in silos. They age as they age, and everybody ages differently. And so we need to create a seamless, integrated system of long-term care that doesn't impoverish older people and their families.
That's so well said. We had a podcast earlier this year. I don't know if you know Peter Benjamin. He does consulting in the hospice space. And Peter, we titled the podcast, A Conspiracy of Verticals. I never heard someone frame healthcare that way. And I love that framing. And then, the conspiracy part, I love it. It's a really good kind of poke on, man, we should fix this. It's really screwed up. That is so well said. I didn't think about asking you till now. We have fallen in love with the 4 M's. We've had a couple of podcasts. This year, we brought Dr. Wynn, Kai Wynn on our podcast, the Johnny Harper Foundation, Marcus Escobedo. So we're all in. We're bringing it to our network. And I see you shaking your head. So the 4 M's feels important to what you're described if you were queen for the day.
Exactly. Because the 4 M's starts with people.
Absolutely. And what matters most to them.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. Final thoughts, Katie.
Well, this has been a great conversation. And, we have a lot of work to do to make take this world a better place for people to grow old. I feel like there's a lot of people who are putting their hearts and soul into making that happen. I see that globally. I see it here. We got some big hills to climb. A lot of headwinds, but I think there are a lot of tailwinds as well. And the tailwinds come from people with passion and innovative spirit and a can-do attitude, and those are the people that are going to change the world.
Wow. This is exactly probably why I had this sense I need to reach out to you because our purpose and passion is exactly what you just said. We're just focused a little bit more on that kind of serious illness space. And we do feel like we're doing some amazing work. Yes, there are headwinds, but in the long run, it's going to be so well worth it, especially now. The baby boomers are presenting a very unique challenge and opportunity at the same time. They've never gone quietly in any part of our society as we have suburbia, we have Suburbans, we have, SUVs, all the things that we kind of take for granted that are a part of our society is because baby boomers they wanted it different. And I think they provide a unique challenge and opportunity all at the same time. And this is our time to rise to the occasion. However, we can collaborate together, Katie. Again, I feel like we're similar folks and teams working on the same thing. So I just want to offer that. And thank you to you and your team. I've always heard great things about LeadingAge. I'm even more impressed now. I know our listeners will be as well.
Good. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. And thanks for the conversation. It was great.
You bet. And to our listeners, we just want to thank you. Hit the subscribe button. This is also a show I want you to pay forward to your coworkers, your leaders within your organization. Thank you for listening. And as we always do, we want to leave you with a brain bookmark to close today's show. Thank you for listening to TCN Talks.
The future of aging will not be defined by the buildings we build, but by the communities we create and the compassion we commit to. The measure of a society is how it cares for its elders. Our responsibility is not just to extend life, but to enrich it.